Hello and welcome to the Lead Strategies podcast. This is your host, Joey Myers from Lead Generation SEOservices.com. And with me today is Mr. Jeremy Brandt. Did I say Brandt right?
That's right. You got it.
That's right. He's out in Dallas, Fort Worth. Cashoffer.com, I think, is the website, right?
And we've got a couple of different companies. WeBuyHouses.com is probably the most well-known. 1-800-CASH-OFFER is another one, certainly. And Fast Home Offer is our lead gen business.
Very cool. Very cool. So we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end too, for those that are going to be interested in some of the information. But I want to dig into today's news that we got the 3/4 rate hike. And, I know it doesn't directly affect the mortgage rates, but it indirectly affects the mortgage rates. So just kind of give me your thoughts on that coming out.
Yeah, I mean, it pretty quickly affects mortgage rates. And, most people that provide mortgages are looking at where the rates are going and kind of trying to get in front of them and raising rates in anticipation of some of these increases. Certainly it slows the overall housing market down. Every time there's a percentage increase in the rates, somebody can afford less of a house. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to not buy a house. It's just the dollar value of the house they can buy goes down by a certain amount for every percent increase, and which slows the economy down, which is I think what they're trying to do a little bit with some of these rate changes. So in the distressed property space where we are, it doesn't have a huge impact. People still have life situations where they need to sell their house quick, or they've got a house that needs a lot of repairs that they've inherited. They still don't want to deal with it. So the interest rates don't impact that in a real major way. The biggest thing for investors usually with interest rate increases is if it takes a little bit longer to sell a house after they've fixed it up, that can slow their business down. There's holding costs for investors in residential real estate investing. And so that's kind of what we see. We've been doing this for a long time. We're through the boom and bust of 2008 and even some of the earlier cycles. And so I think we're pretty well prepared for it. Don't think it's going to be near the level of problems that we had in 2008. It's a very different thing going on in the economy right now than then. But I think every business, it's really smart for them to think about how to manage through the ups and downs of their business and in the economy, the cycles, because they're going to happen. It's inevitable that there's up and down in tech, in real estate, in every industry that you're in. And I've always learned a lot more about our business in the down cycles than in the up cycles. Everybody can win in the up cycle. It's really easy. If you can throw a dart at a wall and hit a stock that's going up, doesn't make you a great stock picker. And same in business. If the market's going up like crazy, everybody's doing really well, but your mettle as a business owner and as an entrepreneur is tested in the down cycles and the decisions that you make and what you do.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Yeah. Let's give go into your background a little bit. So you mentioned that you've been through a couple down cycles. So when did you start in real estate, Jeremy?
I started investing in real estate in 1999. I got involved in real estate investing. I was in the tech world, doing network engineering and a lot of kind of things with .com startups in the late 90s, which was a lot of fun. And then I transitioned into house flipping here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I was buying and selling houses really all over Texas. Really fell in love with that. It was a lot of fun, really enjoyed it. But my passion really was technology. And so took the real estate investing experience that I had and combined that with all the technology experience that I had. And we were really one of the first companies on the internet marketing towards distress home sales. So there was a couple of companies that were coming online. Zillow wasn't around yet. There's a couple of real estate companies that were starting to put up web pages, but nobody was really marketing towards the motivated home seller space, which is what we specialize in. And we were one of the first people doing that, and just had people from all over the country contacting us to sell their house, and bought all the houses that we could in Texas, and then started thinking about what do we do with all these houses in Florida and California and Oregon and Washington. And so started calling investors and basically offering to sell them leads, connect them with the home sellers contacting us. And that was very successful. So within a year or two, we really transitioned entirely out of buying and selling houses as a company and moved into providing lead generation and marketing services for real estate investors. So now we probably have one of the largest lead gen companies in the US that generates motivated seller leads for investors and sells those leads to investors on a pay-per-lead basis. So we're not an agency. We don't provide agency services. We don't do SEO. We don't do paid search on behalf of clients. We do all of that in-house. and then we sell those leads to real estate investors and agents all over the country.
And you mentioned We Buy Houses. So that was you guys started that?
Yeah, WeBuyHouses.com is a little bit different business. That's not so much lead gen. That's similar to it's what's called a brand license. So we license the brand out to investors all over the country. We have locally owned and operated offices that are branded WeBuyHouses.com in their local market. They're buying and selling houses under the WeBuyHouses.com brand, but they're locally owned and operated and running their own business. We're not doing it corporately like an Open Door, an OfferPad, or Zillow Offers before they shut that down. And so that we've had for I think about 12 years. Really have seen it grown like crazy over the last 3 or 4 years. We're in about 120 or so cities across the United States, major markets all over the US. So pretty much every major city in the United States, we have a local office in that's buying, renovating, and selling, or a lot more now Airbnb-ing or doing long-term rentals with the properties.
Very cool. And then looking at some of the strategies that you said you've been through, some of the down cycles and things like that. And so with what you've seen, what is you guys' game plan? I mean, you don't have to go into details, but just kind of general sense, what you guys' game plan going into this, what we're thinking is going into a recession.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's no magic sauce to what companies should do in a recession. We don't have a secret plan that nobody else knows that's going to make us way more successful than everybody else. I think when you're going into a slower period in your business, you can call it a recession. You can call it something else, and sometimes it's economy wide, and sometimes it's just industry specific. But in 2008, when we went through that, the things that I really learned that have changed us a lot for how we operate now are really be careful with your cash, hoard your cash if you can. So when you're going into an uncertain time, the more capital that you have, it allows you to be a lot more nimble. In 2008, every single one of our competitors went out of business. So we were in this lead gen world. When times got tough, everybody just closed up shop and went and did something else. We were able to downsize significantly, keep the doors open, keep going in a much smaller version of ourselves. But what that allowed, a couple years later, when the market started to come back, we were the only game in town for a couple of years before either the competitors started to come back or people started new companies to come in and compete. And that gave us a really strong runway to grow the business before competition got really fierce in our area. And so, one of the things I tell business owners all the time is look at down cycles as a huge opportunity. If you can optimize your business, you can cut expenses, you can make sure that you're running lean and mean, you don't have too many employees for the amount of work to be done, and you can run your business very efficiently. A down cycle is going to put out of business those competitors that can't do that or don't know how to do that. And that can be really positive for the competition in your industry. It gives you a little bit more breathing room and a little bit more runway when the economy starts to come back, of being, one of the only players in your industry until competition heats up again. So although they're always painful, I like to look at them as a really big opportunity. And throughout the years, oftentimes the most wealth has been made in down cycles. So in up cycles, again, everybody's, everything's going up in an up cycle. It's hard to lose money. Everybody's a genius for buying Bitcoin. Everybody's a genius for buying Apple, right? But in the down cycle, you have to make tougher decisions. But if you're nimble and you're not scared in the down cycle, that's where the real wealth is made for most people. They can make decisions and either, buy real estate or buy companies. Companies are distressed assets, just like real estate's a distressed asset. If people are in different industries thinking about buying your competitors, if your competitors are not run as efficiently as you are, and a year from now might be a great opportunity to start buying the competitors in your industry, because they're not making any money and they're having a tough time and they're thinking about doing something else. So there's a real big opportunity to take advantage of the down cycle so that you can ride the wave on the way back up a lot better.
Is that one of the strategies you guys used when you were spreading out, was more that business acquisition? So taking, or just more of the franchisee licensing type of thing?
Yeah, we're not a franchise or we're a brand license. Franchises have to follow a certain set of rules, right. And we didn't want to have that much control. Real estate investors are kind of mavericks. They don't like to be told what to do. And so we wanted to have a lot looser, although very strong relationship and very clear rules around ethics and these types of things. but a looser hold on our network of licensees, so that they were free to run the business how they wanted to. They didn't have to be a rental company. They didn't have to be a fix and flip company. They could do a lot of different things in the industry, and we would support them on the back end with the brand and the marketing and all of the tools that come with that. We've done a lot of acquisitions over the years. I'm an entrepreneur. I love the art of the deal. I love buying and selling businesses. It's a lot of fun. I love the negotiation process. So we've certainly done that over the years, and really enjoyed it. And been able to buy companies that were in the down cycle, that, people were coming out of 4 years of losing money in the business. They were just tired of it, and they had some great assets, but not the energy or time to ride out, the next 5 years to get them back to where they needed to be. And so we were able to buy some of those things, and it's been very good for our business. The local offices that we have around the country, we don't acquire real estate investing companies. So most of what we buy is technology companies that have real estate related marketing or websites or trademarks or different assets related to real estate that we can bring into and fold into our business. All of our local offices, like I said, are independently operated. So we don't acquire home buying companies, but we have hundreds of those companies that are part of our network that are operating under our brand, and buying houses in local markets all over the U.S.
Very cool. Yeah, that's important to know if you're going to be acquiring businesses, what kind of businesses you're going to acquire, and like your extensive background in tech, that's a smart move, because I think and it depends around the country. I talked to a lot of real estate people, and you got people in Arkansas are not going to quite be as savvy on the marketing side as like people in Southern California, where you got production companies and things like that. And so I think that's really smart that you're strategic, and it's not just buying, like you said, a buy or sell agency, but really looking into what's your goal, what's your goal in doing that. Awesome. So let's move into the marketing side. So I know marketing changes depending on the market cycles and things like that. How has your marketing changed down versus up? Have you hit different channels? Have you, how's that looked?
Yeah,
you guys?
Well, I mean, we're a pretty big national company, so we market in just about every channel. We do national TV commercials, radio spots, certainly all digital platforms. We're marketing on Google, Bing, social media, that type of a thing. We're even in all the yellow pages in the United States. So we do a lot of old school kind of traditional marketing. Certainly that's dwindling a lot. The volume goes down over time, but there's still a lot of value in some of those channels. Some of the biggest changes that we've seen over the years, one, just the cost. Being a tech guy, I was the guy that ran the pay-per-click campaigns in 2002 for our lead generation company. And, it was 3 cents a click to get clicks back then, and maybe, 40 cents to get a conversion or less. And so, it was just an amazing time to get a huge amount of value, because the rest of the world hadn't figured out, the value of these search engines yet, and started bidding against, now we'll pay $30 for a click on some of these or more on some of these real estate related keywords that are hyper competitive. Yeah. And, in a lot of markets, you just have people with really deep pockets and not a ton of marketing savvy. And so, that puts companies in a difficult position like ours sometimes, where we have to make money. Somebody that's got $1 million to spend in advertising and hasn't quite figured out they're losing money on their advertising yet is going to spend that $1 million, and we just have to sit back a little bit and let them go through it, because the joke about auctions, which online marketing is, the joke about auctions, if you win, is you're the guy that thought the thing was worth more than anybody else in the world thought it was worth, and maybe that's not a good thing. And so we found ourselves in many cases having to sit on the sidelines and not being able to be the number one bid position in Google search for our keywords, because there's they call it dumb money, but there's people pouring money into something that we know they're going to lose money on it. It's not going to be a profitable venture for them, but they have to go test and figure it out. Or sometimes they don't test and they just don't realize how much money they're pouring down the drain. So there's been a lot of that come into the digital marketing world. And then I think the other big struggle over the last couple of years has been, although it's a good thing, generally it makes it more difficult for us, is the focus on privacy and not being able to target people at as granular a level as you used to be able to. And certainly, I'm a huge privacy advocate, and we don't want big companies having our data, but, examples of, we know the neighborhoods where there are good houses for real estate investors to buy, right? They're usually older neighborhoods with a lot of houses that are in disrepair. Well, due to privacy concerns, now on most of the digital platforms, you can't target a zip code. You have to target a much larger area. Well, that makes our advertising much less efficient because we know the zip code where these houses are that we want to buy. I can direct mail to them. I can have somebody walk a neighborhood, but now you can't market to them digitally, which should be the most easier, targeted and most direct form of advertising. And it's artificial, right? It's only because of privacy concerns. It's not because of any technical limitation, but that forces us to advertise at a city or a county level, much less efficient. We're advertising, our ad is going to be seen by somebody with a $2 million mansion that we're never going to buy, but we have to advertise to that person to get to the other people that we want. So it'll be interesting to see how the privacy concerns play out with Apple and with Google and with Facebook, these different companies trying to balance creating efficiency for advertisers and letting them target the people that are most suited for their products versus the concerns of the consumer, of which I'm one as well, that we don't want other companies knowing everything about our lives and being able to target us so closely that it becomes creepy.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. And it's funny when you were saying that about the prices going up and kind of the dumb money thing. And I remember so I got into real estate about 2005. I got my real estate license, worked for an investing company that was distressed properties, foreclosures, all that kind of stuff. And it was as we were approaching more to 2008, 2006, 2007, things were really hot. And out at the auction, buying houses in cash, I'd go out there as kind of a proxy for the office. And I mean, they were bidding these houses up. I mean, we had comps and everything. And there was maybe 5% left. And it was almost like they were doing it because they figure, well, when we fix it up and it's going to appraise, it's going to keep going up. And which it did, 2008, that's when everything popped.
Right.
But it was just interesting because there was more and more people. It was just growing that were out there and were bidding, like you said, the auction, right? the guy that ends up winning thinks that he's smarter than the rest of them or getting the best price than everybody else. And so, yeah, with the advertising, same thing. With you, I was really working a hitting performance lab, baseball hitting site, Facebook advertising. I got, in 4 or 5 years, I got over 100,000 emails in that little niche, and it flipped, and they just started the amount per cost. I mean, you're right. 3-4 cents a click. I was getting 40 cents per email, and then I would send them through a sales funnel and all that kind of stuff. And it was great. And then all of a sudden things just turned. But I agree with you. Yeah, you got $1 million budgets, marketing budgets that they dumb money. They're just throwing it out there and it's making it worse. They're bidding up all the auction house prices for the rest, and nobody wins.
Well, and to go back to your original point about what do you do in a down economy, that's one of the positives that I see of a little bit of a shift in the real estate market is that all of the kind of deep-pocketed weekend warrior people that invest in real estate, generally, when the market starts to get a little bit tougher, they go find something else that's easier to do, right? It's been so easy to make money in real estate over the last 4 or 5 years. You just had everybody getting into it, kind of like the gold rush, and very similar to 2005, 2006, 2007. It just became so easy to make money in real estate. There was seminars every other day. Every hotel room had somebody pitching a real estate course. And but when 2008 happened, everybody that wasn't, a full-time professional person, that this was their job every day, they didn't have any other income, and this was their business, and they were running it like a business. They just kind of disappeared and went and got jobs, or went and did some other kind of marketing thing, or did some online stuff. And so we look forward to that happening in a lot of ways, because it kind of clears the field of the people that are mucking up the advertising system and the efficient machine that is an auction-based advertising system, but it's not efficient if you've got somebody in there that kind of doesn't know the rules, right? It's, if you play poker, you like to play poker with people that are good poker players because it challenges you and everybody kind of knows how it works. If you play poker with somebody that doesn't know how to play poker at all, it's sometimes almost more difficult than playing with an experienced player, because they're just going to do things that no experienced player would ever do, because they just don't know any better. Right. And so you almost can't predict as much what's going to happen because of their naivete. Right. And so we see that a lot in advertising online, that a lot of people just don't know what they don't know. And so they do, they'll bid, oh, sure, I'll pay $100 a click. That's a click as a lead, right? They don't know a lot of these things, but they've got a $10,000 a month marketing budget for, San Diego, and they're just going to spend until they run out of money, or get lucky and buy a house. And if they buy a house and make a lot of money, then they'll keep going and keep going. but it's highly inefficient because they haven't done all the work to optimize it. And so that to me is one of the pluses for our type of company in a slowdown, is that it kind of clears the deck a little bit of people that are just kind of pouring money into this because it's so easy to make money, and they go look at something else for a little bit.
That's a good point. Really good point. Yeah, the down markets are, some people see it as a bad deal, but it's a great opportunity in many ways if you're just a little bit more creative about it. Last thing before we get to some of your stuff, websites, things like that, offers maybe that you got. We mentioned some of the pay per stuff, right? The Google, the Facebooks, that kind of thing. What do you guys do on the content marketing side of things? Do you guys do anything special, unique?
We don't do a huge we don't do a huge amount of content marketing. Most of our advertising is really focused on kind of a direct response, kind of a consumer. So we're not, although we have a great brand, and I think are probably one of the most well-known real estate investing companies in the country in the investor world. On the consumer side of things, we're really a consumer has a need and a point of time. They find us and they connect with us, and then we connect them with a local real estate investor. So certainly we write articles and do SEO on everything and kind of build out some content, but it's not a huge part of our business. One of the like I have a background in SEO, huge believer in SEO, and we definitely do a lot of it. But back when we first kind of really got into this, there were a number of companies that came and competed with us that were selling leads and purely relied on SEO. And you can kind of see where this is going. They would undercut us on lead price because their cost of a lead was essentially free. And we kind of had this belief that the leads that come in through SEO are gravy. We love them because they're inexpensive relatively, but we can't build the business around that. So we want it, we need it. We want to be out there, but we can't build the business around it. We have to build the business around paid traffic because that's what's sustainable. If we can't make it work with paid traffic, we can never scale it. And so we saw a number of companies go out of business because they couldn't, as soon as Google made an algorithm change, their leads went from 1,000 a month to 0 or 1,000 a month to 10, and they couldn't afford to go do paid search because they were charging their clients way too little money for that lead, because they were getting it for free. So it kind of, lucked into one of those seams where you can really exploit it and make a lot of money for a short period of time until the market or, Google algorithms kind of catch up with what you're doing and you have to go pay for it. So, so we do write articles and do some content marketing, but it's not a huge focus of our business. It's not a big part of what we do. We really focus on paid search, lead generation, affiliate marketing, and then working with our investors to help them grow their businesses. We run conferences and all that other kind of stuff as well, but that's not the main focus of our business.
It's a good point. Not putting all your eggs in one basket. When I first got going on the Hitting website, which was back in 2008, it was very much SEO oriented. It was email and SEO. And I got to a point where, and this is what I tell people, is I got to a point where I had about 3,500 stale emails where I would gain maybe a couple and then I'd lose a couple, gain a couple, and I just wouldn't go beyond the 3,500. And it wasn't until Facebook marketing, when I started paying to play, that I went from the 3,500 to about 15K, and then it was 25K, and then it was 40K. And then, and so that paid advertising is huge. And I think it's a great piece of advice, is that you have a little bit of other channels that you're working. We do the SEO thing, but it is, for a company that hasn't done anything, could take 4 to 6 months for traffic. Now we do a little bit different of a thing, the content on the content side, where we blow up content into 6 different versions of it. And then we have a distribution network, like for 400 sites, news sites, things like that. And so then you add that PR side of it. And what's cool about that is that you have, typically SEO is trying to stay in step with Google, right? You mentioned those companies that all eggs in SEO basket. Google makes an algorithm change, boom, they're trying to keep up with Google, the SEO people, right? But then you have the media on this side that Google tries to keep up with, right? So it's the media is the big thing, the third party sites that people trust, know, like, and trust. And so then you got the media side. If you got a little bit of both, it's a little bit more sustainable on at least the Google side, at least being one piece,
Well, for sure. And I think, it's, I don't know kind of the typical size of the business of your audience, but when you're kind of very first starting out, a solo entrepreneur, you can't do everything because you just don't have the bandwidth to do everything. Right. So especially if you're a service provider, the basics of SEO, and it's really not so much SEO as it is, making sure that your business name and address and phone number show up correctly in the directories and the Google directories and those types of things, and starting to do that local search optimization, so that when somebody's searching for a lawn care company or a painting company or kind of whatever your thing is at the local level, that you really show up there. That's super important. But then as you start to scale and get to a little bit larger company, making sure that you're advertising, not just advertising, but you're doing marketing in all the different channels, because like I said, we've seen many times where companies put all their eggs in one basket, even Facebook recently, right? Or Apple, right? Two major changes. Companies that were making hundreds of millions of dollars saw massive hits to their revenue because Apple locked down the ability to get information on the person that was using the phone, and Facebook locked down localized advertising and made it much more difficult to target somebody. And so, I know companies that were making, tens of millions of dollars, just, basically drop shipping stuff off of Facebook, and that their businesses are in a, real crisis as they figure out, what's the new normal. We had a system that was working amazing, but now because we can't target people as narrowly, our cost of advertising doubles. And if our cost of advertising doubles, we can't afford to sell our product anymore because now our margin's gone. So never getting too comfortable when you're kind of in the gravy train seam, right? It's awesome when you find it and you find that niche and you could just kind of exploit it and keep it going, but never getting too comfortable with that, because in an instant it could change, right? These are all privately held companies. These are all companies that can change their rules on a dime. And so I've always believed that in business, you've really got to have diversification in a lot of different areas, and certainly in marketing. If all of your customers come through Facebook, go hire somebody to figure out, paid search, and make sure that you're putting a bunch of money into SEO and content marketing, and make sure that you're, thinking about offline forms of advertising. Is there a way to make some of that efficient for you, so that if somebody changes something, it's not 100% of your customer base, it's, a much smaller percentage of it, and gives you time to retool. In the real estate world, it's the equivalent of, do you have one rental house, or if it's vacant, it's killing you, or do you have 100 rental houses, or a rental house and an apartment building and a commercial office space? Now, when any of them are vacant, you have some time and cash flow from the other things to address the situation. Same is true in business for marketing. You've got to have diversity in your sources of leads and your sources of traffic and customers.
Right. I love it, Jeremy. I appreciate your time and your advice on all this. And I'm sure there's some nuggets in there that will help other real estate companies and things like that watch this interview. Before I let you go, just talk a little bit about some of the websites, if they're offers, anything like where people can find you, just kind of the conclusion side.
Yeah. I'm out on social media, Jeremy Brandt, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all that kind of stuff, Twitter. The main companies that we have are WeBuyHouses.com, which is a real estate investing brand license, similar maybe to a franchise that some people have seen, but we're not quite as tight as a franchise is, where we help really experienced real estate investors grow their business with a national brand. The other companies that are kind of sister companies are called 1-800-CASH-OFFER. Which you might see on national TV. We do most of our national TV advertising into the 1-800-CASH-OFFER brand, cashoffer.com, and Fast Home Offer. Those are the lead generation business. So we don't do branding for our clients. We sell leads on a pay-per-lead basis. So if an investor is in any city in the United States and wants to buy more houses, they can join our program, and for a flat price per lead fee, they'll connect with motivated home sellers in their local market within 1 or 2 seconds of them contacting us. So we've spent a lot of time and money on software and building our platform. We built everything in-house to handle lead management, lead routing, lead distribution. And like I said, I think we're probably one of the largest in the country that do leads for real estate investors, work with, all the major companies in the country, realtor.com, those types of folks. Yeah, always happy to talk to people in real estate or talk to people kind of in the entrepreneurial world. I've started a number of different companies, sold some companies, and it's just always fun to talk business.
Very cool. Yeah, I was going to say this conversation kind of took a lot of different turns and stuff that I didn't expect, but it's good. I mean, we've got some marketing stuff, got some business stuff, got some real estate stuff. So really appreciate your time, Jeremy. Just stay on with me here as we stop the recording here.